over is some general guidelines on dietary intervention to help with hypertension and high blood pressure. So just some general rules. Weight loss and fat reduction is key. You'll see a lot of this overlaps with what Dr. Willie said. Of course, these things are definitely heavily diet related. As far as weight and fat reduction, that can be approached from a lot of different standpoints and a lot of different things you can do for it. It's very important. Avoidance of certain foods, very important. Processed foods, of course, typically contain a lot of sodium in it. So we do encourage people to steer clear of those for the most part. And just a note on the next thing, sugary drinks, like we need to plug in the computer.
What is it say?
Plug it in.
Batteries. Okay, keep going. We'll try to keep going.
Technology, what can you do?
Just a note on sugary drinks. Sodium kind of gets all of the attention as the bad guy in hypertension. That should not be the exclusive spotlight here, because sugary drinks can actually play just as much of a role, if not more than a role. Especially when you start looking at some of the specific components those sugary drinks have. For example, high fructose corn syrup, or just fructose itself. Now, it's natural form fructose from fruits, when it includes all the other things involved in that food, is not bad for you. It's not unhealthy at all. But when you see it in concentrated forms in these drinks, it has the ability to increase heart rate, cardiac output, vascular pressure, and renal sodium retention. So sodium retention in your kidneys. So high sugar diets are a lot more dangerous for this than what's acknowledged in most cases, just because sodium's getting the spotlight. So I want to make sure that both those things are acknowledged. And of course, alcohol, Dr. Willie already mentioned, has an effect on high blood pressure, especially excessive alcohol intake. Optimal protein and fat intake, huge benefit to helping blood pressure, partly because of what it balances out in the rest of your diet. Supplementation can help. It's not always the appropriate thing to do, but when you supplement with things like potassium and magnesium, it can help balance out your body's sodium levels. And hydration, of course. As far as weight and fat reduction, we can sit and talk about that forever. You'll see that says weight/fat reduction. I want to address that. Weight is not always the primary when it comes to reducing these risk factors. What you weigh on the scale tells you how much of you is there. It does not tell you anything about what that's made up of. So we say fat reduction because it's important to look at your body from a perspective of what's lean and what's fat. If you're a little bit overweight, but your fat percentage on your body is totally healthy, chances are you're avoiding some of these risk factors, even though you don't weigh the perfect ideal body weight. Daily movement, Dr. Willie talked a little bit about that. Doesn't have to be going to Gold's Gym or any other gym in town. It can be what you're capable of doing, as long as you're not just focused on staying still all the time, which kind of, with internet, cell phones, desk jobs, and vehicles, kind of seems to be a big deal. We don't move that much if we don't think about it and actually make a conscious effort to do it more often. Protein intake, part of that is balancing out the way your body uses sugars and providing building blocks for your body. Overall health is promoted by protein intake. And then, of course, stress control. Both exercise and a healthy, unprocessed diet can help with stress control. Avoidance of certain foods, of course, when it comes to hypertension, this is huge. This is one of the biggest things to do. And quite a detailed list, so I'm not going to go over the whole thing. But if we minus out the fact that most of these things have excess sodium in them, can anybody tell me something, one thing, that all of these foods have in common?
They taste good.
Except for the first.
They're processed.
So besides sodium, there you go, they're processed. So that's a big deal. Processed foods commonly contain not just sodium, but other components that don't help us out with blood sugar control and overall health. So that is, sorry, I clicked a little late on that. So that is the commonality. They are processed foods. And a lot of times those foods are higher glycemic as well because of what they go through in the processing. So we raise blood sugar more quickly. Go ahead.
So, like frozen peas and spinach and carrots are bad?
Now let's not say they're bad. What's optimal is to go with fresh whenever you can. Nothing on that list is necessarily the devil. None of it is off limits completely. that list would be something that is suboptimal, but if you needed to do frozen vegetables because you didn't have any choice, you didn't have the time, that's a better pick than some of the other things you could have picked.
Is it better to have frozen versus canned?
It is, because typically frozen is going to have less things added to them in the processing, so they'll be lower sodium than canned vegetables will in most cases. And I'm not saying you can't have canned vegetables. I can green beans all the time. Try to buy the ones that are lower sodium when I can. But the rest of my diet, of course, has lower sodium in it. If you're a person that eats a lot of canned foods, a lot of your diet is focused on processed things, heavy soups, things that were listed in that older list, then of course that's where we get into the particulars, where if you're having all those things for every meal, of course it's going to be bad. Your overall sodium intake is going to be way higher at that point. But if you had canned green beans for lunch and you had fresh vegetables for dinner, breakfast didn't have anything that was processed in it, frozen vegetables or canned vegetables would have been fine because you weren't overdoing it. So I don't want to say you can't have any of this. This should be the minor part of your diet. Where a lot of people, processed foods are the major part of their diet. Go ahead. Did you have a question? Oh, you just put it on the page.
How do you get away from processed foods?
How do you get away from them? By shopping the outsides of the grocery store.
Don't buy anything in a bag.
Yeah, don't buy anything in a bag.
That's for farms.
It is hard. It is hard. You know, once you get used to it and you start learning, of course, to watch sales, but places to shop where you can buy fresh meats, or you can buy meats that have been flash frozen and they're not farmed. Places like Costco, for example, they're a very good place to get fish that's not farmed. Well-caught fish in bulk packs. Buying things that maybe they're not fresh, because you can't always go that way, but buying things from the outside parts of the grocery store, not going to the aisles with the cereal in it and all that kind of stuff. That's kind of how you avoid these. This is something that I spend hours and hours teaching. It's hard to put it in a nutshell, to show people how to escape our surroundings, because we are surrounded by more foods, more accessibility, more flavors, and more quantities than we've ever had in history. And up here, that's normal. Physiologically speaking, let's go back 60 years when people had gardens and farm boy activity levels. That was normal food. And back then, it was actually very easy to have an organic, healthy diet. Nowadays, it's just what we're surrounded by has become normal. So, in a way, it has to do with stepping back in time. That's how you get rid of these.
It's a mentality.
It is.
People think that all they can afford is snack and
Yeah, and when people have been doing
hamburger
that
helper.
exactly.
Really?
I did it in college, and I did it before college. I did it for many years. So it was the beer and corn dogs lifestyle back then. But that is something that actually becomes quite normal to people, and when you try to shift out of it, they don't know anything different. People have done that for 20 years.
Yeah.
So it is a difficult thing because we don't have the right thing in mind.
What's good for arthritis?
For arthritis, an anti-inflammatory diet, and that is a whole different
I
presentation.
know that.
So that's a lengthy discussion. I'd be happy to have with you later.
Okay.
Okay, so optimal protein and fat definitely help benefit blood pressure, partly because these things help you maintain a healthy weight. Protein sources include mainly lean meats, not that you can't have some higher fat meats as well. Nuts and seeds, good protein source, also a very healthy fat source. Nuts and seeds actually do have a little more fat than they do protein, so they can provide some of both. Dairy also has vitamins and things that help lower blood pressure. Fats from, of course, healthy sources, not that we have to disinclude saturated fats, but these are the most beneficial ones. Fats from fish, coconut oil, olive oil, avocados, any non-processed oils. The only fats that are truly bad are the man-made fats. Supplementation can help, but you always want to talk to a physician before you go about supplements. This is kind of a disclaimer here. We don't want you to just go buy a bunch of supplements and start taking them when we don't know exactly what your situation is. Potassium, it's involved in a lot of low sodium seasonings like Mrs. Dash, both original chicken, lemon herb, all these, I won't go through the whole list. Potassium has a mildly salty flavor to it, and adding that to your diet helps balance out the sodium in your diet. Specifically, a good balance is a 3-to-1. So if you have 1,500 milligrams of sodium in your diet in an entire day, you would want to have 4,500 milligrams of potassium, because those two things work together in what they call a sodium potassium pump that has to do with how water shifts in and out of your cells. And that, of course, can be a big part of blood pressure control. Dietary sources of potassium include meat, potatoes, acorn squash, parsnips, fish. All of your brightly colored, multicolored fruits and vegetables are good sources of potassium. And nuts and seeds, of course.
Salt, yeah.
Yeah, we do kind of throw it out if you know, they're smoked and salted, even though those are the best tasting ones out there. It's just not fair.
No, it's not fair.
Okay, so what's the best eating plan for optimization of blood pressure? There's a lot of different ways we can take this. But honestly, if you want to look at it from a true perspective, kind of broad, but very, very true. If God made it, eat it. If man made it, don't. If you can stick to this, you're better off. And I do want to add one note. I didn't have this in the slides. One of the most common diet you're going to find promoted for hypertension is the DASH diet. Dietary approach to stopping hypertension. That's been around for a while. It promotes a lot of healthy fruits and vegetables, low-fat dairy. It's a lower protein diet, which for some of us in the know with this field, lower protein diets give us some concern from the standpoint of building blocks for lean tissue. Lean tissue, muscle, organ, bone, water, all those things are involved in what we call lean mass. That's the part of your body that actually controls your health. And lean mass declines with age. If you aren't maintaining it, you're losing it. And low protein diets don't particularly help us in that area. So some recent information, more recent studies, particularly one done at Penn State University, studied the effect of 4 different diets on blood pressure, starting with the DASH diet and 3 modified versions of the DASH diet, and put people on this diet for 5 weeks to see what happened to their blood pressure. It's called the BOLD diet. Sorry, I always forget my acronyms. Beef in an optimal lean diet. So the BOLD diet is the DASH diet with beef added, basically. Same thing, just more protein added. I want to put the spotlight on beef. This is how the study was done. Generally, more protein in the diet. So the BOLD diet has 3 different forms. Beef in an optimal lean diet has 4.0 ounces of lean beef a day. The BOLD Plus diet has 5.4 ounces of lean beef. And the DASH diet, 1 ounce of lean beef a day. And then the control diet they used in there was the Healthy American diet, My Daily Plate, which has 0.7 ounces of lean beef a day. So a fairly low protein diet. And what do you guys think the winner for the lowest blood pressure was?
What kind of beef was it?
Probably a little bit of both lean and fat. What do you guys think? The BOLD Plus? Yeah, the one that had the most protein in it actually had the lowest effect on blood sugar. So the BOLD Plus diet, basically lots of healthy, fresh fruits, fresh or raw, fruits and vegetables, low-fat dairy, with plenty of protein instead of the lower protein content of the DASH diet might actually be a little more beneficial for your blood pressure. So don't skimp on your protein sources. Okay, does anybody have any questions for me?
On milk, pasteurized versus raw milk. Not worth the risk.
Depends on where you got the raw milk. Typically raw milk is safe, but you have to get it very close to the time it came from the cow. It doesn't hold as long. So I won't say that pasteurized is bad, but if you're a dairy farmer and you have access to that milk within a short period of time after it comes out of the cow, then I'd say raw milk would be better for you.
But you have to be careful epidemiologically diseases, because they've had outbreaks with people drinking raw milk.
Yeah, it depends on where you get it and how careful you are about the process that went through to get from the cow to you, and that needs to be a short process. So me personally, I don't have that access, I don't have that avenue, so it's always pasteurized milk if I'm going to drink it.
Some of us grew up with that. It's right.
Yeah. And typically, I mean, if you grew up that way and you had it right there and you knew how it was handled, it's totally safe. But yeah, in the mainstream, it's not necessarily safe unless you know everything about where that came from.
Any other questions?
Are you gonna post that list that you had up there?
We can? Yeah.
Can you do that? Okay, have Dr. Willie will take care of it.
Okay.
You have coconut oil, how about coconut milk?
Coconut milk will have added sugar to it. They're not quite the same thing. The coconut milk doesn't have as much healthy fat in it. So it depends on how active you are. The sugars that are in that coconut milk will be fine if you're going to use them up. If not, they're no help to you.
Oh, I was told that coconut has a lot of, contributes to cholesterol and to avoid it for diet.
Contributes to HDL cholesterol, not LDL. So
Oh,
if you
so
look at some of the
that's good.
older studies, they could be confused to say that.
I see.
But no, the coconut has saturated fat in it. And if you look into the past, of course, saturated fat got demonized in all forms. The only reason that coconut oil is saturated fat is because it's solid at room temperature. That's it. It actually carries what's called a medium chain triglyceride. It is not the same as an animal fat. And coconut oil is extremely healthy and can help with your good cholesterol. And anytime you elevate your good cholesterol, you help to lower your bad cholesterol. So we're big fans of coconut oil. Still high in calorie, so your quantities need to be appropriate, but it's a healthy oil. Any other questions? Yeah, it is really good in a smoothie.
Yeah. Is it as healthy as olive oil?
Mhm. They're different. There's different qualities between those two things, but if you were to compare the health benefits of both of them, I think they're pretty even.
Do you have an opinion on the different meats? I mean, you got lean meats, which is your fish and your chicken, and then your beef, a ratio of 1:3 or something like that, or I mean, because you get different amino acids, I understand from the difference from a red meat versus a white meat.
You do. It's a different balance of the main amino acids. I forgot. Branch chains, different levels of branch chains and different amounts of fat. So to balance out calories and the negative effects that you might get, or balance out the amino acids you're getting, you want a little bit of the red meats because they're higher in fat, higher in calories, maybe once or twice a week, and the other ones you would focus on a little bit more, or actually a lot more. It depends on how you want to distribute it. The bold diet put meat and beef in every day. But like I said, the study was done with beef. What would really be looked at as a benefit is your total protein intake. And a variety of sources is great. Generally, we do say less red meat, but not no red meat.
Less red meat, just fat content.
Mainly just fat content. Yeah, me and Warren are big beef lovers, so that's a hard one. I don't want to offend anybody with it. We love it, but if I tell people to have beef every day, they think I'm crazy. So I'm actually not afraid of the fat that's in beef because I watch the overall fat amount in my diet. So I'm not too scared of that. But we do encourage our patients to have red meats be the lower end of their protein intake.
Fish and chicken up there.
Yep, we need fish, chicken, cottage cheese, dairy-based proteins, high protein food. Turkey, yeah, turkey. Some lean cuts of pork.
Vegan diets, should they?
Total vegan? Now are you talking vegetarian or vegan?
No, I'm talking vegan.
That's-
I'm not one, but I'm just.
That's a hard one. That's a really hard one. You can get all of your protein sources on a vegan diet, but you have to know more about food than I do.
Yeah.
Basically, that's exaggerating. I put people on vegan diets all the time. I ride them. But the balance of carbohydrate to protein, by the time you've gotten all of your daily protein needs out of your vegetables, typically ends up with insulin resistance, unless they're an endurance athlete. The only vegans I've really seen pull that off really well are extremely knowledgeable about food. A lot of them have schooling in it, and they're athletes. They are extremely active. They use up all the carbohydrate in that diet and still get all the protein that they need. But I'm not a real big fan of the vegan lifestyle. A vegetarian? Absolutely. Vegetarian lifestyle you can pull off great.
Yeah.
You can still get your protein sources from some animal-based areas. You don't have to have any meat. You don't have to kill an animal, because that's a lot of the concern for the vegetarians I run into. And that can be pulled off very healthy. But the vegan lifestyle, that's difficult. It can be done, but the majority of vegans that I've had come in to see me were in bad shape and didn't understand why, because they're on a vegan diet and it's all healthy food. It's all organic, it's all great food, and they still cause themselves problems.
And what's the difference between the vegan diet and the vegetarian?
Vegetarian.
No, The other guy you talked about.
Vegetarian.
Okay, vegetarian carries three forms: lacto-vegetarian, ovo-vegetarian, and lacto-ovo. Lacto means they accept dairy products. Ovo means they accept eggs. So a vegetarian would be one of those three. They either accept dairy, eggs, or both in their diet. Where a vegan, no animal-based products at all. In fact, most of them, they won't even take animal-based products in shampoo or any other product that gets close to their body.
Won't even take honey.
Yeah. And most vegans won't even take honey. It's all plant-based diet.
Do they know plants are respirators?
Probably not. All right, my time is up. I'm being warned.
So how do you know
How do you know the balance? That's by learning how to monitor your diet. I actually teach people how to do that. Answering that really quickly is hard. If you ever want help with it, though, look me up. I'd be happy to help you.
All right, thanks very much, Jerry.